Hey, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing to ask
Sure.
you, did you hear the audio or at least hear news reports about it?
Well, like most people, I heard it on the news, and so this is something as a mayor I try to keep myself out of investigations, and of course in this case there's a federal criminal investigation ongoing, and so for me, like most folks, I heard it through the media.
I mean, but what was your reaction to it as a person who lives here in Albuquerque? I know there is a federal investigation. We've
Sure,
heard from the feds,
sure.
though, that the city doesn't have any restrictions on what it can say about the people involved.
What I'll say is this: any police officer that would call somebody a lunatic in the course of a high-stress situation like that, it's disappointing. I think it's disappointing to me as a mayor, it's disappointing to our community, and I think as police officers there's a higher standard, and the good news is that almost all of our police officers do have that higher standard, but things were said that are certainly disappointing, that are of concern.
Do you think that this audio says anything about the culture that's in Albuquerque Police Department that we've heard the Department of Justice talk about, that we've heard, some of the families who've had people who have been killed by officers talk about, that there's this culture of, what do you think this says about the culture in AP?
One of the things that we're working on, that Chief Eden is working on, really rigorously, and we're working with the Department of Justice on, is to put processes, procedures, and training into place so that our police officers, who even by the DOJ's report, most of which go out every day and do wonderful work, they risk our lives for us, they have a dangerous job, they keep us safe in our community. But in those rare occasions where somebody does not do the right things, and in this case, any officer calling someone a lunatic in that situation, in my opinion, it does not live up to the standards of the Albuquerque Police Department. We have to address that. So what we're really working on is setting systems into place so that when things almost always go well and officers almost always do the right things, they're handled as they should be, but when things aren't handled like they should be, that we have those systems in place. So it's really why we're working so hard to get this right.
And seeing something like that, hearing something like that, it's drawn a lot of criticism from members in the community. Some people think, this is, how can a city continue to see behavior like this? I mean, is this somebody that you would want working for the city exemplifying this behavior?
Well, once again, I have to restrict my comments as a mayor because there are federal investigations, there are lawsuits in place. So, from a personal standpoint, what I will say is any officer that would say something along the lines of calling someone a lunatic, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with what I want with the police department. It doesn't fit what our community wants, or any community around the country. And every community deals with issues like this, and what we have to do is address them individually, one by one. In this case, because there's a federal criminal investigation, there are things that Chief Eden will have to wait until investigations are completed to do. But I can guarantee you, I've had the conversations with the chief. I certainly got his attention, and it's one of the areas that we're working on as this holistic review of the department.
I think some people are saying, though, in the end, why does Keith Sandy still have a job for Albuquerque Police?
Well, once again, people need to understand he's on administrative leave, and he has been since the day of the James Boyd shooting. He's not taking calls for service. He's at home. So, because of the investigation that's going on, that's the appropriate thing to do. I think that, we all get in this discussion about paid leave and not paid leave and these things. These are all things that have been set up through contracts. There's labor laws in place that take effect as well. So as frustrating as it may sound to some people, we want to make sure that the due process system actually works and is part of that. So, but I understand where people sometimes have that frustration.
One last question for you. I think out of all of this, people think the biggest thing, I think, is the word that comes up is accountability. People feel like, is there accountability happening here? And I think a lot of people, look to you to do that. I mean,
well, one of the things that we're working on through this process with the Department of Justice, and really some of the reforms that we put into place, even in my first term, go straight to the heart of accountability. We know that most of our officers go out every day and do the right things almost all the time, but when they don't, where's that accountability from the officer to the second line supervisor to the lieutenants, all the way up to the chief? And I know for a fact that Chief Eden has another situation on his desk right now where somebody used an expletive in a call with a citizen, and there's discipline being imposed. This particular case, because of the federal investigation, we have to wait for certain things to get done, and I understand that as well. But that's a big part of it is getting folks to understand. And I say this to the chief all the time. Listen, police officers in Albuquerque and across America have a very unique job. They have the ability through law to take away someone's freedom, and they have the ability through law to actually take someone's life in the line of duty if it's justified. That is a very special place to be as a citizen. Hardly anybody has that. So with that comes a much higher standard. And so a lot of what we're working on is standards, but then the accountability to go with those standards.
And will the city hold people accountable after this?
I think the city does hold people accountable. I think there's a long list of disciplinary actions that have come through over the years. I think just since I've been the mayor of Albuquerque, I think we've had over 50 police officers that have either been fired or separated from service from the Albuquerque Police Department. So I've seen several chiefs come through. I've seen each and every one of them take this very seriously. I get briefed on a fairly regular basis, not on specifics of each case because I'm prohibited from getting involved in personnel matters, but I've seen our chiefs look at this from the standpoint of saying, listen, when things don't go well, when something's not done that's up to the standards, taking that action. There are people in our community that want to see more done. That's why we're working with the Department of Justice. We're working diligently to get something crafted that works both for the community and the department. But this is an example of using language that's inappropriate, and it's another layer to this ongoing investigation.
Thanks. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.